Hello, welcome back to the Cosmic Consciousness series. If you haven't subscribed to me, myself, and I, drop a like and subscribe at the bottom. Welcome to the Unity, baby. Today we'll be covering chapters 16 through 18. Yeah. All right, chapter 16 is Alfred Tennyson. It doesn't say anything about his age or anything like that, or what year he came out. He starts, okay. This poet, for though not absolutely entitled to rank in the divine order, yet he has worthily served for, and must be allowed that name, passed the greater part of a long life in that region of self-consciousness which lies close upon the lower side of the cosmic sense. His weird seizures mentioned in The Princess, in which he seemed to move along a world of ghosts and feel himself the shadow of a dream, belong that to the spiritual realm, but far more certainly a condition well described in the following lines of the ancient sage. Okay. More than once when I sat all alone, revolving in myself the word that is the symbol of myself, the mortal limit of the self was loosed and passed into the nameless as a cloud melts into heaven. I touched my limbs, the limbs were strange, not mine, and yet no shade of doubt, but utter clearness, and through loss of self, the gain of such large life as matched with ours, were sun to spark, unshadowable in words themselves, but shadows of a shadow world. And again in the Holy Grail, let visions of the night or of the day come as they will, and many a time they come, until this earth he walks on seems not earth anymore, that is. This light that strikes his eyeball is not light, the air that smites his forehead is not air, but vision, yet his very hand and foot, in moments when he feels he cannot die, and knows himself, if no vision to himself, nor the high God of vision, nor the one who rose again, ye have seen what ye have seen. And yet once more in plain prose. A kind of walking trance I have frequently had, quite up from boyhood, when I have been all alone. This has often come upon me through repeating my own name to myself silently till, all at once, as it were, out of intensity of the consciousness of individuality, the individuality itself seemed to dissolve and fade away into the boundless being. And this not a confused state, but the clearest of the clearest, the surest of the surest, the weirdest of the weirdest, utterly beyond words, where death was an almost laughable impossibility, the loss of personality, if so it were, seeming no extinction, but the only true life. Okay, so, wow, so he's practicing self-talk right there. I just literally wrote about self-talk like last night. Repeating my own name, it says it has a little note down at the bottom. Repeating my own name. Tennyson quite unconsciously was using the means laid down from immemorable time for the attainment of illumination. He who, thinking of nothing, making the mind cease to work, adhering to uninterrupted meditation, repeating the single syllable, Om, meditating on me, reaches the highest goal, or cosmic consciousness, in their words. Of course, it makes no difference what word or name is used, right? What is required is that the action of the mind should be as far as possible suspended, especially that all desires of every kind be stilled, nothing wished or feared, the mind in perfect health and vigor, but held quiescent in a state of calm equipoise. Okay, so religion was no nebulous abstraction for him. He consistently emphasized his own belief in what he called the eternal truths, in an omnipotent, omnipresent, and all-loving God who, who has revealed himself through the human attribute of the highest self-sacrificing love and in the immortality of the soul. He invariably believed that humility is the only true attitude of the human soul, and therefore spoke with the greatest reserve of what he called these unfathomable mysteries, as befitting one who did not dogmatize, but who knew that the finite can by no means grasp the infinite, or infinite. And yet he had a profound trust that when all is seen face to face, all will be seen as the best. He said, once again with deep feeling in January 1869, yes, it is true, there are moments when the flesh is nothing to me, when I feel and know the flesh to be the vision, God, and the spiritual, the only real and true. Depend upon it, the spiritual is the real. It belongs to one more than the hand and the foot. You may tell me that my hand and my foot are only imaginary symbols of my existence. I could believe you, but you never convince me that the I is not an eternal reality, and that the spiritual is not the true and real part of me. These words he spoke with such passionate earnestness that a solemn silence fell on us as he left the room. It was written of Tennyson just after his death. It is understood that he believed that he wrote many of the best and truest things he ever published under the direct influence of higher intelligences, of whose presence he was distinctly conscious of. He felt them near him, and his mind was impressed by their ideas, the meaning of which, if the report, as it probably is true, is that the veil between him and the cosmic sense was so thin that he felt the teachings of the latter through it, but there is no evidence known to the present writer that it was ever torn away, so that he saw the other world, that is. In other words, there is no evidence that he ever actually entered into cosmic consciousness. All right, next to chapter 17. 17 is J.B.B. Whomsoever that those initials belongs to. J.B.B., Doctor of Medicine, born in 1817. He entered into cosmic consciousness in 1855 at the age of 38 years. An informant says of him, he is not a refined man, and he goes on, it is one of the strange things in this whole matter that the attainment of the truth seems to leave a man in this respect about it as it finds him. In the same manner, or in the same state, I guess. Dr. B was an example. He seemed content to live in a cheap, bare house, and he rather courted coarseness in dress, talk, and life. As regards coarseness in dress, food, and surroundings, our informant need not have looked upon J.B.B. as so exceptional. He might have compared him with Tolenthian Swami, with Edward Carpenter, or even with Jesus, Mohammed, or Walt Whitman. At the same time, our informant continues, touch him on the subject of the inner vision, and he was alive to the core. He had been a spiritualist, but after illumination, while seeming to know that much that spiritualism taught was true, its importance was dwarfed by the much greater truths to which he had access. He once told me, the informant continues, a curious thing. He said he died, his spirit left his body for 20 minutes, and he looked at, hovered over, and finally went back into it. He told this in a grave, convincing way, which caused in the hearer a gruesome feeling. No one who heard him could either tell that it could help believing. No one who heard him tell it could help believing it. I think it meant could help not believing it, like it was so convincing. Whatever. That's the end of that one. Okay, next chapter 18, which is Henry David Thoreau. Born July 12, 1817, died May 6, 1862. There are several reasons for suspecting Thoreau to have been a case of cosmic consciousness, such as his addiction to solitude, his love of mysticism and the mystics, the almost preternatural acuteness of his senses, his love for and fellowship with animals, his intellectual keenness, and his moral elevation. The present editor has, however, searched in vain for data which might convert this presumption into anything like a certainty, and Thoreau is so close to us that had he experienced illumination, the evidence thereof ought to be forthcoming and decisive. But what do these 8 lines mean, if not that their author had passed through some such experience as is here treated of two different passages, okay. Eye hearing, get who had but ears, and sight who had but eyes before, eye moments live who lived but years, and truth discern who knew nothing but learning's lore. So the passage below, breaking it down, it says, have you ever been asked for that instruction by which we hear what we cannot be heard, by which we perceive what cannot be perceived, by which we know what cannot be known? Okay, so that's like the Upanishad, okay. We've discussed that. The next passage goes, I hear beyond the range of sound, I see beyond the range of sight, new earths, and skies and seas around, and in my day the sun doth pale his light. So, breaking that one down. Oh, it looks like the camera did its stupid little movement thing. Okay, breaking that one down. Sorry about that. Hearing ye shall hear, and shall in no wise understand, and seeing ye shall, and shall in no wise perceive. Okay, so once more, an allusion to like the unseen realm, and also below it, the eyesight has another eyesight, and the hearing another hearing, and the voice another voice. Yes, the Upanishad. Once again, yeah, that was from the Upanishad. If Thoreau experienced illumination at the usual age, evidence of the fact should be found in Walden, which was written between 1845 and 1854, when its author was 28 to 37 years of age. As a matter of fact, we do find passages in that book which suggest that the writer of it, if not an actual case of cosmic consciousness, was yet well on the way thereto. For instance, it says, our manners have been corrupted by communication with the saints. Our hymn books resound with a melodious cursing of God and enduring him forever. One would say that even the prophets and redeemers had rather consoled the fears than confirmed the hopes of men. There is nowhere recorded a simple and irrepressible satisfaction with the gift of life, any memorable praise of God. So down below it says, he finds God and human life greater and better than has ever been said, as indeed they are greater and better than anyone has said or can say. And then continuing on, the millions are awake enough for physical labor, but only 1 in a million is awake enough for effective intellectual exertion. Only 1 in 100 millions for poetic or divine life. So compare Whitman. I cannot be awake, for nothing looks to me as it did before, or else I am awake for the first time, and all before has been a mean sleep. Continuing on, sometimes when I compare myself with other men, it seems as if I were more favored by the gods than they, beyond any deserts that which I am conscious of, as if I had a warrant and surety at their hands which my fellows have not, and were especially guided and guarded. I do not flatter myself, but if it be possible they flatter me. I have never felt lonesome or in the least oppressed by a sense of solitude, but once, and that was a few weeks after I came to the woods when, for an hour, I doubted if the near neighborhood of man was not essential to a serene and healthy life. To be alone was something unpleasant, but I was at the same time conscious of a slight insanity in my mood and seemed to foresee my recovery. In the midst of a gentle rain, while these thoughts prevailed, I was suddenly sensible of such sweet and beneficent society in nature, in the very pattering of the drops, and in every sound and sight around my house, an infinite and unaccountable friendliness all at once, like an atmosphere sustaining me, as made the fancied advantages of human neighborhood insignificant, and I have never thought of them since. Ever little pine needle expanded and swelled with sympathy and befriended me. I was so distinctly made aware of the presence of something kindred to me even in the scenes which we are accustomed to call wild and dreary, and also that the nearest of blood to me and humanist was not a person nor a villager, that I thought no place could ever be strange to me again. Some of my pleasantest hours were during the long rainstorms in the spring and fall, which confined me to the house for the afternoon as well as the forenoon, soothed by their ceaseless roar and pelting, when an early twilight ushered in a long evening in which many thoughts had had time to take root and unfold themselves. In those driving northeast rains, which tried the village houses so, when the maids stood ready with mop and pail in front entries to keep the deluge out, I sat behind my door and in my little house, which was all entry, and thoroughly enjoyed its protection. In one heavy thunder shower, the lightning struck a large pitch pine across the pond, making a very conspicuous and perfectly regular spiral groove from top to bottom, an inch or more deep and 4 or 5 inches wide, as you would groove a walking stick. I passed it again the other day and was struck with an awe, looking up and beholding that mark, how more distinct than ever, where a terrific and resistless bolt came down out of the harmless sky 8 years ago. Men frequently say to me, I should think you would feel lonesome down there and want to be nearer to folks. Rainy and snowy days and nights especially. I am tempted to reply to such, this whole earth which we inhabit is but a point in space. How far apart, you think, dwell the 2 most distant inhabitants of yonder star, the breadth of whose disk cannot be appreciated by our instruments? Why should I feel lonely? Is not our planet in the Milky Way? This which you put seems to me not to be the most important question. What sort of space is that which separates a man from his fellows and makes him solitary? I have found no exertion of the legs that bring 2 minds much nearer to one another. What do we want most to dwell near to? Not too many men, surely. The depot, the post office, the bar room, the meeting house, the schoolhouse, the grocery, Beacon Hill, or the 5 Points, where most men congregate, but to the perennial source of our life, whence in all experience we have found that to issue, as the willow stands near the water and sends out its roots in that direction. This will vary with different natures, but this is the place where a wise man will dig his cellar. I one evening overtook one of my townsmen who had accumulated what is called a handsome property, though I never got a fair view of it, on the Walden Road, driving a pair of cattle to market, who inquired of me how I could bring my mind to give up so many of the comforts of life. I answered that I was very sure I liked it passably well. I was not joking, and so I went home to my bed and left him to pick his way through the darkness and the mud to Brighton. or bright town, which place he would reach some time in the morning. Any prospect of awakening or coming to life to a dead man makes indifferent all times and places. The place where that may occur is always the same and indescribably pleasant to our senses. For the most part, we allow our only outlying and transient circumstances to make our occasions. They are, in fact, the cause of our distraction. Nearest to all things is that power which fashions their being. Next to us, the grandest laws and continually being executed. Are continually being executed. Next to us is not the workman whom we have hired, with whom we love so well to talk, but the workman whose work we are. I only know myself as a human entity, the scene, so to speak, of thoughts and affections, and am sensible of a certain doubleness by which I can stand as remote from myself as from another. However intense my experience, I am conscious of the presence and criticism of a part of me, which, as it were, is not a part of me, but spectator, sharing no experience, but taking note of it, and that is no more I than it is you. Wow, he really feels connected to things, to life, and other people. So it says one last note at the bottom under that one. Compare Whitman. Trippers and askers surround me, people I meet, the effect upon me of my early life, or the ward and city I live in, or the nation, the latest dates, discoveries, inventions, societies, authors old and new, my dinner, dress, associates, looks, compliments, dues, the real or fancied indifference of some man or woman I love, the sickness of one of my folks or of myself, or ill-doing or loss or lack of money, or depressions or exaltations, battles, the horrors of fratricidal war, the fever of doubtful news, the fitful events, these come to me my days and nights and go from me again, but they are not the me, myself. And also, apart from the pulling and the hauling stands what I am, stands amused, complacent, compassionating, idle unitary, looks down, is erect, or bends an arm, or an impalpable certain rest, looking with side-curved head, curious what will come next, both in and out of the game, and watching and wondering at it. Whatever that means to you could be different what it means to me. That's what I got from that one. But anyways, this concludes our session here today. I hope you got some good stuff out of that. Don't forget to subscribe and like me, myself, and I. And until next time, have a great day.